Romans chapter 6 begins with a question that many find to be particularly surprising. Shall we continue in sin in order that grace may abound? And if the question is surprising, the answer is perhaps even more so. Paul emphatically declares, by no means. And if we think this is an isolated idea for Paul, he repeats himself later in the chapter in Romans 6:15. So what does Paul expect when it comes to the Christian life? What does he expect believers to do when faced with temptation, when tempted to sin? His answer comes in two parts. Let's take each one in turn. Part 1 comes in Romans chapter 6, verses 5 through 11, and has everything to do with Paul's theology of union with Christ. He says believers have been joined to Christ in his death, and that means that we have hope for resurrection with Christ at his coming. Now, Christ's death carries certain implications. The death he died, Paul says, he died to sin once and for all. And that means that sin and death have no power over him. He'll never die again. And for Paul, that means those who belong to him benefit from what he has accomplished. If it's true for Jesus, it's also true for those who belong to Jesus. That's what Paul's doctrine of union with Christ means. If it's true for Jesus and you belong to Jesus, it's true for you. So whatever his death means for him, it also means that for you. And the death of Christ means that death and sin have no power over Jesus. His victory over sin and death counts for you if you belong to him. The second part of Paul's understanding of the Christian life follows from his understanding of union with Christ. This comes in Romans chapter 6, verse 12, where he declares, therefore, right? Here's the command. Based on your union with Christ, here are the ethics. Here's the command. Here's the imperative. Here's what I expect from you. Do not offer your body to sin. Don't offer the parts of your body to sin for wickedness or unrighteousness. Instead, Paul says, if you've been joined to Christ in his death, sin and death have no power over you. Therefore, offer your bodies to God in Christ, right? Because you've been joined to Jesus, every moment, every day, offer your bodies to Christ. All the parts of your bodies. Your hands, offer your hands to Jesus. Your mouth, offer your mouth to Jesus to speak words that honor him consistently. Your eyes, your ears, what you listen to, what you look at, how you spend your time and your resources. Paul says all of these aspects of your bodily life, offer them to Jesus. And for Paul, this is the normal Christian life. When he asks the question, shall we continue in sin? His answer is absolutely not. And Paul here paints a surprising and hopeful picture of the Christian life. Not one where we just kind of stumble through life day after day, struggling with sin and in condemnation and hoping we can do better, but never really actually living in consistent ways that honor Jesus. For Paul, the normal Christian life is a life marked by a body that honors God, a body that honors Jesus. It's marked by holiness. That's Paul's word for this sort of normal Christian life, holiness. And so for Paul, in the moment of temptation, believers who've been joined to Jesus have a way out. In the moment of temptation, surrendering to sin is not the only option. For Paul, believers, people who've been joined to Jesus, are not slaves to sin. So it's how we use our mouth or our hands, whether it's gossip, gluttony, fear, anxiety, whether it's our relationships, our coworkers, our family. In all of these instances, all the parts of our body, for Paul, are to be used consistently in ways that honor Jesus. This is the normal Christian life.